Okay, you ready? Good. Hello, my name is Ben Luft. I'm the director of the World Trade Center Health Program here at Stony Brook. And I just want to thank you for joining us today to give us your recollections of your experiences on 9/11. This is part of our oral history project, which will be deposited or archived in the Library of Congress. And so it will be available for posterity, not only for people to see now, but for generations to come. The idea of this project is really for us to get an understanding of 9/11 from the point of view of those who directly participated in the event. So it's not really a history in the normal way that we think about history. We don't really want to know the facts of how much jet fuel was burnt, or what the size of how much rubble was deposited, or things of that sort. What we're really interested in is in your personal recollections. We know that by asking you to do this, this is a very difficult task. We're asking you to go back and re-experience in a lot of ways 9/11, to think about it. And we know that that was a painful time for all of us, but certainly it was most painful for those who were directly affected and who were there. So if any time during the course of the interview you kind of feel that it's too much, or that you don't want to talk about it anymore, or just let us know and we'll stop the interview. If you decide that this is not for you and you want to for us to discard the interview, we'll discard the interview. It's really all up to you. Because it's a personal story, what we'd like you to do is for you to personalize it as much as possible. We want to know how you felt, what you smelled, what you saw, who you were with, if there was a particular location that you were at. All of this is very important because, as I said, the major purpose of the interview is for us to get a history that will allow others to see it and to understand what happened. And the best way for that to happen is for them to be able to connect with you. And we feel that the best way is for them to be able to connect in as personal a way as possible. So are there any questions?
No.
Oh, good. So without further ado, if you could just tell us your name, spell it, and just give us a little bit of an introduction as to who you were, what your job was at around 9/11.
My name is Don Matheson, Mathisen, and at the time the World Trade Center was attacked. In 2001, I was a market reporter based at the New York Stock Exchange, and I was working for Bloomberg News. Specifically, I was doing radio reporting, and I had a booth overlooking the trading floor.
I see.
And the stock exchange is about maybe a 2-minute walk or less from the South Tower of the World Trade Center.
And how long had you been doing that?
About a year.
I see.
And I've been a reporter working in Lower Manhattan for, 20 years at that point.
Okay, so how does your day usually start? What time do you usually get up and go to work, or what is the life of a reporter?
At the time, I lived in Brooklyn, and I would take the R train from Brooklyn, and I got off at the Rector Street station, which is one stop south of where the World Trade Center is. And as I was walking up Rector, I usually would look up at the World Trade Center. It was kind of a little habit I did, just as I was about to walk past Trinity Church in the graveyard. And because I was working on Wall Street, I always thought of Alexander Hamilton, who's buried in the graveyard. It was a little routine of mine. And then I'd walk into the stock exchange, and if I remember correctly, trading starts at 9:30, so I would get there about 8:30. And on that day, I remember looking up at the Trade Center, and the sky was completely blue, not a cloud in the sky, which is unusual in New York.
Yeah. So you kind of, it was a nice day, and you felt upbeat.
I did.
And as you were going into your and the stock exchange, there was no and Where do you say that you work in a particular booth, or is it?
Overlooking the stock exchange, the trading floor.
Okay, and so do you have colleagues that work with you?
There was I pretty much worked alone, but there were other reporters in the area. They're just TV and radio reporters.
Okay, and so as that time transpired, what happened? Did you?
Well, the assignment editor, a guy named Bob Honig, called me right after the first plane hit the North Tower. I was the closest Bloomberg reporter on the scene, so he said go over, which was very unusual. I never left the stock exchange. Ordinarily, at that point in my assignment was doing market reports.
So you weren't aware before Mr. Honig called you? So
no.
You weren't aware, you were, and
I was in a little room like this, overlooking the floor of the stock exchange.
And the exchange was?
Trading had not started yet.
I see. Right.
And so Bob called me and said, there's a fire over at the World Trade Center, go check it out. I remember very vividly what happened because I walked out of the building. Now again, I had been working in Lower Manhattan for many years. I knew something immediately, I immediately knew something very unusual had happened, because when I stepped out of the building, fluttering through the sky, and all over the air, was pieces of paper, just not like broken pieces of paper, not litter, but sheets of paper that there were thousands of them. The sky was filled with these things. And there were dead birds, mostly dead pigeons, lying on the pavement. And I thought to myself, there must have been an explosion of some sort, because the pigeons probably died from a force of air.
Right.
And the paper was obviously blown out from a high altitude, from a high building like the Trade Center. So I walked Wall Street where the exchange is. It's just a matter of steps to get to Broadway. I walked north 1 block, a very short block, and I could see the Trade Center, but it was the South Tower, and the South Tower was the second one hit, so it didn't appear damaged or on fire. I walked a little further and saw the North Tower, and then I saw what had happened. I did not know that a plane had hit the tower at that point. I just saw a very large fire.
I see.
And I knew there was an explosion from the papers fluttering through the air.
And how about the people all around you? Were there, that's kind of a crowded part of Manhattan. There's a lot of congestion. How were people responding around you?
People were concerned, but there was no panic at that point, and for the most part, nobody knew what had happened.
So here you are. So you're walking now toward the North Tower. You're seeing that fire.
No.
Oh, okay.
Mama didn't raise a fool. I've been to a lot of disasters. I stayed, if you know, it became kind of famous, Zuccotti Park. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Liberty Park at that time. I walked to the corner of Church Street and Liberty Street, and there's a large building this would be the east side of Church Street, originally built as the U.S. Steel building. And I didn't get too close because I wanted to figure out what was happening. And I spoke to a few people. Nobody really knew, and I knew that they wanted me back at the stock exchange to file a report on what I had seen. So I wrote a quick story, walked back to the stock exchange, went on the air and filed the report. After doing that, that's when I went back and a lot more happened then.
Okay, so you filed the report. I guess you spoke to Mr. Honig. Is that who it was, or that's?
Well, I went on the air back anchoring at the time was John Tucker and Jessica Ettinger Gottesman. Jessica Ettinger Gottesman, and two things make me very emotional, and why don't we get to that later though? And one of them has to do with John Tucker, and the other one has to do with after the tower fell, the South Tower. But if you want to ask me about more what happened in between.
No, I was just kind of wondering what was happening in this. We'll get to that, but what was happening in the stock exchange at that time? And here you go back.
I don't recall anything
Uh-huh.
specific happening at the stock exchange
Uh-huh.
at that point because I was mainly interested in at this point reporting on the fire.
Uh-huh.
So they sent me back out.
Uh-huh.
And this time I brought a tape recorder with me and a reporter's notepad. And I was standing again at the corner of Liberty and Church. And I was looking up at the North Tower burning, and then something happened that I just was beyond imagination. I heard the loudest noise I've ever heard. There was a loud clap, and then a gigantic fireball in the South Tower. The second plane had hit. But again, I did not know that there was a plane hit the first tower or what had caused the thing at the second tower, the explosion at the second tower, the South Tower. So the first thing that crossed my mind was, I'm looking up at there, at the two buildings, I'm saying, how did the flames jump from the North Tower to the South Tower and cause that explosion? And then I quickly dismissed that, and I said, it couldn't have been. Then the next thing that occurred to me was, maybe there's some terrorists in the Hudson River shooting missiles at the buildings. And I didn't think that was possible. I said, maybe they're in New Jersey firing missiles. But I did not know what caused that.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is, I was able to see from my vantage point the east face and the north face of the South Tower to World Trade Center. The plane had come in from the west and then turned, and it had come in from the west, turned, made a circle, and hit the south face.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't see the west or the south face. I could see the east and the north face. So I had no idea what caused that explosion. But I'll never forget that crack. It was, but without a doubt, the loudest noise I've ever heard.
But you, at that point, you knew that there was something, terribly amiss.
Well, obviously, the tower. There was a gigantic explosion, and that's when things got very bad, very fast. So what I did then, I gathered enough material for a report, went back, and filed another couple of reports. I went on the radio live, and then they sent me back out again, and that's when the South Tower fell.
So so how did that, when you went out again? So what happened exactly when it fell? Is it?
When you asked me before if I went close to the North Tower,
Right.
I did not, but I did go very close to the South Tower. I knew a little bit about the building. I had been in it. I had been in the buildings many times. In fact, after the first bombing, if you remember, Governor Cuomo, the first Governor Cuomo, Mario Cuomo, had his office in roughly the 50th floor. I don't remember the exact floor, but roughly halfway up. And he was the first tenant back in the World Trade Center. And I went up with him, and he did a white glove test. He put on white gloves, and it was a print reporter, a television reporter, and a radio reporter that went into his office with him. And it's a long story, but I was the radio reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you had an attachment there.
Yeah, I have been in the building many, many, many times, and hundreds of times in the shopping mall part of the building, and in the PATH station and all of that. The interesting thing about Governor Cuomo, I asked him to open the drawer of his desk to see if everything was in order, and he opened it up, and it was filled with headache medicine, aspirin and Excedrin and things like that. He wanted to focus on the Joe DiMaggio baseball that was signed, but I included the headache medicine in my story. Anyway, so on 9/11, I was pretty close to the South Tower. And if you imagine this is the building, the first plane, if this is just the building here for this illustration, the first plane hit very high up. That's why that fell second. It was hit first, but it was the second one to fall down. The South Tower, World Trade Center 2, imagine this is, my fist is the top half of the building. The plane hit roughly in the middle. When I was standing there at that point, I noticed the building was twisting ever so slightly and tilting. Now, I reported that when I was on the air, and one of my colleagues back at 499 Park Avenue, Bloomberg headquarters, said, "You can't talk about that. You can't say that the building could fall. That's crazy. No one else is reporting that." And I said to Earl Peterson, I said, "Earl, I'm here. This is what I'm seeing. I'm only reporting what I'm seeing. I'm not making any of this up." Back with the building here, so it twisted slightly and tilted, and it looked to me like it was going to break off and fall, and it didn't. What happened was, if you know about the pin and hanger assembly of the individual floors, the weight started pushing it down, and instead, if that had fallen off and like that, I would not be here. I would be dead, because I was that close to the building. But the instead, it pancaked down, and that saved my life. Killed a lot of other people, but it saved my life. There was debris falling off the building at that time, and I saw people killed and injured all around me. At this point, I was standing in a crowd of several hundred people, almost all of whom had come out of the building, out of the South Tower. And when the building started coming down, there was lots of screaming, and I wouldn't describe it as panic, but I would say it was close to panic. And the crowd started moving, running to the east, away from the building, towards Broadway. My training as a journalist is to stand there and watch what's happening. But I was unable to do that because I was in this crowd, and again, that saved my life. I had to move with this herd, if you will. And many people have seen the images of the smoke billowing out and covering things. That started happening. But it came in waves, and the first wave was, you still could see, and then the second wave was thicker and so on, because there was wave after wave after wave. The crowd ran south down Broadway, and the first street we came to was Wall Street, and that's a left-hand turn and heading east. The first building on the north, the north side of Wall Street is 2 Wall Street. It's a large office building. Janitors had opened the doors and were directing people into the building, because by this time, all hell was breaking loose.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing before I tell you what happened inside the building, and that is that many of the women were on their way to work, and they were wearing high heels. You see less of that now, but there was a number of women, and they fell as this herd of people were running. None of those women got trampled. Men, it was all men who stopped and helped them up and literally pulled their shoes off their feet, and the women then ran in their bare feet. So back to 2 Wall Street, the janitors were directing people into the building and down into the cellars. This particular building, I believe, had a cellar and 3 or 4 sub-cellars. And they were packing people down. There were hundreds of people in these basement areas. And I was one of them, and I started interviewing survivors from the South Tower with my tape recorder. And the building started filling up with what I and the others thought was smoke. We thought this building might have been on fire, but it was the dust from the...
It was making its way into the basement.
The janitors were remarkable people. They were unsung heroes, without a doubt, because they kept telling us, this building is not on fire. We've been up to the roof is not on fire. And this is like a 30, 40-story building. It's a very high building. they were saying it's dust, but it was getting pretty thick in there, and I was very uncomfortable at this point. So I couldn't find a way out of the building, but I eventually did, and went back to the stock exchange. By this time, the traders had all left, and there was just security people. But I always made it a point to get to know the security people in a building.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a nosy reporter, and they can be very helpful. So they let me in, and I filed reports. Still, at this point, I did not know about the planes. I just knew that the South Tower had fallen down.
Yeah. So, there was even, just to kind of get back to, that running toward the building and people. So there was this, even though there was a sense of, I'm not sure panic is the right word, or just a fright and flight.
It was fright.
But people were able to maintain their decorum to help the
yes, indeed. Yes,
the woman or the lady that was.
Several women had fallen.
Yeah,
yes.
had fallen. So it was there was a certain order or a certain amount of
people were,
decorum.
Right, decorum is a good word in this case, and people knew that we were in trouble, but we didn't want to trample anybody.
Right, right. And then when you went down into this basement, you had these the janitors who took it upon themselves, and they were kind of bringing people, and in some ways they became the authority.
Absolutely. Yes.
And people would listen and just and again it wasn't a panic type of situation.
It was a lot of tension, a lot of concern.
Right.
I thought when the South Tower fell, I thought there was a good chance that I was going to die that day or get hurt. And a lot of people did.
Yeah.
When I went back to the stock exchange and filed a report, and I said there was two things that haunt me. I'm going to try and tell you this without getting too upset. Whenever I tell anybody, which I haven't told too many, we got to take a break.